The shuttle groaned as it pierced Zephyros' upper atmosphere, friction licking at the hull like flame over glass. Marcus Chun sat rigid in his seat, the gravity slightly heavier than Earth's pulling at his chest. Through the narrow port window, he could see the planet unfold below Zephyros Prime, a world of shimmering light and towering crystal structures that rose from the surface like frozen waves. Some were taller than skyscrapers, jagged spires refracting light into rainbow halos. Others curved like ribs of some ancient beast, beautiful, overwhelming, hostile. First time seeing a Zephyrian? Captain Rodriguez asked from the front. Marcus nodded, eyes still fixed on the crystalline terrain. Yes, he said quietly, and hopefully not the last. 3 months ago, humanity had terraformed Kepler-4, a lifeless system, or so they thought. Beneath the surface, invisible to human tech, lay sacred Zephyrian moon gardens, spiritual nexuses, ancient places of energy. The machines had melted them to ash. A misunderstanding. But one soaked in grief. Now their war fleets moved silently toward human space, and Earth's only chance was one man in one fragile shuttle. Landing in 5 minutes. As they descended, the pilot's voice crackled. Sir, you might want to get ready. We're touching down at the High Court in Zephyros' capital. It's single quotes S. Different. Marcus tightened the collar of his diplomatic uniform, smoothing out the creases with trembling fingers. He reviewed the briefing files again. Zephyrians, tall, four-armed, ritualistic, physically imposing. Emotion is weakness. Honor is law. Their cities hum with sentient crystal, alive in ways human science didn't fully understand. And most of all, they valued action over words. Everything they did carried meaning. The shuttle hissed onto a landing pad made entirely of blue crystal, polished smooth like a mirror. As the ramp descended, Marcus stepped onto it, his boots echoing strangely against the surface. He could feel a faint vibration rising through his legs, a hum, low and constant, like the planet itself was speaking. 5 Zephyrian guards awaited him. They were massive, armored in shimmering lattice that resembled their city spires. Energy. Spears in hand, faces unreadable, human. Ambassador Marcus Chun, said the lead guard in broken but deliberate English. Queen Vexthara waits. The guards flanked him, forming a living corridor. As they walked, the palace revealed itself walls of shifting light, crystal veins glowing like starlight beneath their surfaces. Colors pulsed softly through every structure. Blues when calm, reds when tense. They moved like breath. Marcus could feel it. This city wasn't built. It was grown, alive, and it was watching him. Every Zephyrian they passed stopped, stared. Some had skin like molten copper. Others shimmered in sea glass green. But all stood tall and silent, golden eyes fixed on the fragile, soft-skinned outsider. Marcus felt exposed, judged, already dismissed. They reached a towering set of crystalline doors, which parted with a harmonic chime. The throne room stretched wider than a football field, the ceiling vanishing into mist. Pillars of white crystal lined the room, each humming in a different tone, together forming a subtle, haunting melody. And there, seated upon a throne from a single flawless diamond, was Queen Vexthara. Marcus had seen photos. Nothing prepared him for her presence. 7 feet tall, regal, radiant. Her deep violet skin gleamed with silver patterns that shifted like ink in water. Her 4 arms rested calmly, 2 crossed, 2 splayed open like a warrior at rest. And her eyes pure gold, like suns. He approached, stopping at the marked symbol on the floor. Bowed low, as instructed. His voice came out practiced but hoarse. Your Majesty, I am Ambassador Marcus Chun of the United Earth. She stood a single step another. She moved with grace and thunder. Each pace made the crystal around them hum louder. Marcus rose slowly, watching her close the distance between them. His heart pounded. "You come for peace?" she asked, voice smooth like steel over fire. "Yes, Your Majesty." "Humanity deeply regrets." Before he could finish, she moved in a blur. Her forearms reached out and pinned him to the nearest crystal pillar, his back colliding with the surface, cold and humming. He gasped, caught between shock and awe. Her face was inches from his. Her eyes searched his. Not with anger, with curiosity. "You want peace, human?" She whispered. Marcus couldn't speak. "Then marry me." Everything inside him stilled. His heart, his thoughts, the palace, even the crystal song. Fade to black. The world hadn't moved. Marcus Chen stood frozen against the humming pillar, pinned by 4 alien limbs that held him with the precision of a warrior and the stillness of royalty. Queen Vexthara's golden eyes didn't blink. Her breath was calm. Around them, the towering crystal throne room seemed to hold its breath to its pillars, silent. The colored hum that once filled the chamber now utterly still. "Marry me," she had said. Not shouted, not threatened. Declared. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He wasn't afraid of death. He was afraid of misunderstanding everything and dooming Earth with a single wrong word. After a long moment, Queen Vexthara slowly stepped back, her forearms retracting in perfect synchronization. The crystal pillar released its pulsing grip from his back. The hum resumed, low and soft like distant thunder. "You freeze well," the queen observed. "Perhaps that is your kind's defense." Marcus managed to breathe. "Just once, shallow, Your Majesty," he said, voice dry. "I don't understand." "No," she replied, "you do not. That is why you must learn. I give you 3 Zephyrian cycles to understand our bond traditions. After that, you will answer." He blinked. "And if I don't?" Her silver markings pulsed brighter. "Then we prepare for war." She turned her back on him and strode up the long path to her throne. The walls came alive again, colors rippling with restrained energy. One of the guards stepped forward. "You will be escorted to the royal archives," he said. "Queen has granted study access. Your specialist may join." Marcus nodded numbly, still trying to process the idea. This wasn't a political agreement. It wasn't a treaty. It was a proposal. Not of romance, but of spiritual fusion. In Zephyrian terms, bonding wasn't about love. It was a vow between species. And he'd been chosen. The walk to the archives took him through deeper chambers of the Crystal Palace. The air grew cooler, denser with power. The halls narrowed. The smooth walls began to show symbol-shifting script that moved like liquid, always rearranging. The sentient crystal of the palace was more than decorative. It was alive. And aware, they entered a chamber so vast that the ceiling disappeared into violet mist. Thousands of crystal tablets hovered in vertical shelves, each pulsing with its own color and rhythm. The air shimmered. A voice behind him. "This is incredible." Marcus turned. "Doctor." Sarah Kim stood at the threshold, eyes wide. Her brown hair was pulled into a tight braid, her skin pale from the shuttle ride. She was the leading xenanthropologist on Earth and his closest friend. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Marcus, these tablets, they're not just data. They're emotional records. They remember." A green-skinned Zephyrian in copper armor stepped forward. "I am Captain Exfer. I will assist your study. Touch nothing until instructed." Marcus nodded. Sarah stepped beside him, and the 2 humans stood beneath glowing knowledge that pulsed with memory and breath. Captain Exfer gestured toward a blue tablet hovering alone. "This is first bond record. 10,000 cycles ago." Queen Ixeri bonded with the Kalari, saving their kind from star death. Sarah touched a glowing symbol. The tablet flared above them. The air ballooned with moving images, not holograms, but memories. They saw a queen much like Vexthara standing before a crowd of desperate Kalari. A marriage. A promise. And then, vast Zephyrian ships carrying the Kalari to 3 new planets. Marcus stepped back, breath caught. This is how they make peace. Not peace, Exfer corrected. Family. Bonding is not alliance. It is merging. Sarah turned slowly. Marcus. In every case, the bond joined 2 compatible species. Shared biology, similar culture. Zephyrians have never bonded with anything as different. As humans. Why now? Marcus whispered. Why me? Captain Exfer turned to a red glowing tablet. Queen has studied humans many cycles. She read your history. Saw how you endure. What others cannot. How you survive by bending. By choosing understanding. Sarah translated the floating script above the red tablet. Her voice caught. Marcus, she picked you. Specifically you. She believes you can teach them what it means to survive without war. Before Marcus could respond, the crystal walls pulsed violently. Alarms echoed clear, sharp tones that turned the chamber cold. Captain Exfer's armor flared. Extremist movement in Lower Crystal City, he said, voice low. Zephyrians against human contact. They marched toward the palace. Sarah looked at Marcus. He didn't flinch. Didn't freeze. Not this time. We have 3 days, he said. Let's make sure they mean something. The throne room felt different this time. Not colder, but sharper. Like every crystal edge had been honed in anticipation. Marcus Chun stood alone at the center of the vast chamber. The polished crystal beneath his boots shimmered with geometric patterns that shifted beneath him, reading his heartbeat, his breath, his hesitation. Zephyrians lined the walls, silent and still. Warriors, scholars, nobles, some watching with interest, others with veiled contempt. They made no effort to hide. This was not a welcome. This was a weighing. Queen Vexthara sat upon her throne, her posture perfect, her 4 arms resting with the balance of a predator, coiled and calm. Today, her ceremonial robes shimmered like starlight caught in water. Her silver markings pulsed in slow rhythm, as if counting down. She didn't speak. She waited. Marcus cleared his throat. His heart pounded, but his voice came out steady. Your Majesty, he began, bowing in the Zephyrian way he'd practiced a dozen times in front of a mirror. I've studied your traditions, the bonding, the purpose behind it. No response. I understand now that your people do not marry for love. You bond for something deeper: connection, protection, shared legacy. Still no response. He straightened, looked directly into her golden eyes. But I must ask you something that may seem offensive. Murmurs stirred in the walls. Questioning a queen during ceremony was unheard of. Speak, Vexthara said, her voice even. Why me? Marcus asked. Your intelligence networks knew about the Moon Gardens incident before it even happened. You knew we were coming. You could have contacted any leader, any diplomat. Why did you wait? Why let your people prepare for war, only to offer peace through marriage at the last second? A long silence. Queen Vexthara stood. As she walked down from her throne platform, the air in the room changed. The humming of the crystals grew darker, lower, like storm clouds gathering over a field. Because I needed to see your nature, she said. Not your words, your instincts. When I pinned you against the pillar, you froze. Not in weakness, but in thought. No other diplomat would have done that. They would have fought, begged, panicked. She stopped in front of him. But you chose silence. She studied him as if he were a language she was still learning. You understand fear, but do not let it command you. You endure, you observe, You wait. Marcus felt the pressure of her words settle deep inside his chest. But, he said, slowly, observation is not enough. Not for this. He turned to face the room, the entire Zephyrian court. Your Majesty, he said, louder now, addressing them all. I believe in what the bond represents. I believe humans and Zephyrians can become more than allies. But marriage is not the right first step. A sharp intake of breath echoed through the chamber. You refuse the Queen's offer? Barked a voice near the far wall. A massive Zephyrian stepped forward, General Kexmar. His red armor bore a dozen battle markings, each one etched with liquid obsidian. His voice dripped with scorn. He insults our traditions. He hides behind human weakness. Shall we let words decide our fate? Vexthara raised one hand. The general halted, simmering. High. Do not refuse, Marcus said, holding his ground. I propose something new, a trial bond. 30 Zephyrian cycles. In that time, I remain here. I live among you. I learn your ways. And you, your Majesty, visit Earth. You learn ours. At the end of that time, we decide together if the bond should be made permanent. The silence that followed was absolute. No breath, no hum. Even the living crystal seemed stunned. Then chaos. Voices erupted. Some shouted in rage, others in curiosity. Old scholars murmured in disbelief. Warriors clenched. Weapons. Even the walls glitched in color, flickering red, blue, violet. Enough! Vexthara's voice rose, not in anger, but in force. Everything stopped. She turned to General Kexmar. What is the highest virtue in Zephyrian tradition? Courage. He answered, jaw tight. And what defines true courage? Facing the unknown, without fear. Queen Vexthara turned back to Marcus. Your suggestion is without precedent, she said slowly. No bond has ever been tested in such a way. No bond has ever been offered between species so different, Marcus replied. She tilted her head. Her silver markings dimmed slightly. This experiment would require full access. No observation from the sidelines. Agreed, Marcus said. I will train with your warriors. Live in your halls. I will be tested. And you will walk among my people. Speak to our leaders. Share meals with our children. Another long pause. Then, I accept. A low shock wave of sound rippled through the chamber as the crowd processed her words. But hear this, Vexthara continued. This is not a game. If at any point I judge your people incompatible, the trial ends and war begins. Marcus nodded once. The same goes for us. The Queen raised her arms. Then let the trial bonding begin. Zephyrians and humans will walk together for the first time since the stars were born. The crowd erupted again, but this time it wasn't rage. It was something like wonder. As the ceremony ended, Sarah joined Marcus at the edge of the hall. Her face was pale. You realize what you just did, right? She whispered. Marcus exhaled. Slowly. Started a galactic experiment based on cultural dating. Or, she said, gave us 30 days to prove humans and aliens can share a galaxy without killing each other. He looked back at the Queen, who was still watching him. From the steps of her throne, her eyes were unreadable. But for the first time, not cold. The Zephyrian sun rose without heat, casting angled shadows across the crystal city like blades of blue fire. The towers sang softly in the wind, vibrating with ancient tones that only the natives could truly understand. For Marcus Chun, each sunrise was a reminder he was still alive, still breathing, still here. And every breath came at the edge of a war no one dared to name. 2 weeks had passed since the trial bonding began, and every part of him hurt. His body ached from combat drills. His mind strained from memory lessons of alien scripts and layered meanings. His spirit, whatever that was being tested by the Zephyrian philosophy of crystal fire. The living energy they believed flowed through every being, city, and choice. Again, barked Instructor Hexine. A hulking warrior whose forearms moved like they were sculpted from flowing stone. Marcus stood barefoot on the training floor, chest heaving, bruises painted across his ribs. His left leg trembled. The staff in his hands vibrated with stored crystal energy, pulsing against his fingers like a heartbeat. You hesitate, Hexine growled, circling him. You think too long. Thinking is not knowing. Strike or fall. Thinking's how. We stay alive, Marcus muttered, wiping blood from his lip. No, Hexine snapped. Knowing is how you live. Feeling is how you lead. He lunged again. Marcus raised the staff in time to deflect 2 of the 4 strikes, stumbled on the 3rd, and fell flat with the 4th. His breath left his lungs like a punch from gravity. It self-died as he lay on the floor. The crystal tiles beneath him shifted tone from a soft, hopeful green to an irritated red-orange dot. He whispered to the floor. Yeah, I get it. I suck. Hexine loomed over him. You are human. That means you are learning. But you cannot lead if you do not embody our ways. You cannot bond with our queen if you do not bleed beside our people. Marcus slowly pushed himself up. His bones screamed in protest. I don't want to bond with your queen. Not like that. Hexine's expression didn't change. Bonding does not ask what you want, only what you are willing to become. He left without another word. Marcus leaned on his staff, alone again, and for a moment he understood the weight of the trial, not just diplomacy, but identity. Not performance, but transformation. This wasn't a mission. It was an initiation. That night, he walked through the upper corridors of the palace, overlooking the glowing city below. Towers swirled in living patterns. Light moved not with electricity, but emotion. It responded to the pulse of the people. And there, across the courtyard, a figure stood at the edge of the high spire. Queen Vexthara. She wore no crown, no armor. Only a flowing robe of layered crystal threads, catching the twin moon's reflection in subtle violet hues. She didn't turn as he approached. You move more like a Zephyrian now, she said softly. My ribs disagree. Vexthara tilted her head, faintly amused. You are adapting. You've been silent, he said. No communication for days. Earth thinks you vanished. I was among your people, watching, listening. They speak boldly. They live loudly. They question everything. And they remind me of what we lost. He studied her profile. There was a stillness to her that no human leader carried, like she belonged to something older than decision-making. She didn't act. She manifested. You still believe this will work? He asked. I believe in possibility, she answered. And I believe in consequences, but belief is not enough. What is? She turned to him finally. Shared risk. They stared at each other, 2 beings standing on the thinnest edge between diplomacy and annihilation. Beneath their feet, the crystal spire shifted tone again. Silver and white. Then came the alarm. A piercing sound vibrated through the structure. High and sharp like a warning from the bones of the planet itself. A Zephyrian guard burst through the outer corridor. Your Majesty, Ambassador, you must come. Vexthara didn't hesitate. Marcus followed. They descended into the lower levels of the palace. This part was different. Raw, unfinished, not polished like the halls above. Here, the crystal walls. Pulsed red, alive with urgent warning. Captain Exfer met them at the nexus of the command chamber. Tactical maps flickered across floating slabs of light. Extremists have emerged from hiding, he said. They march now through the lower tiers of the city. Weapons drawn. Led by War Commander Drath. Vexthara repeated. I had hoped he would wait longer. He refuses to accept the trial bond, Exfer said. He claims your time among humans has corrupted you. That Ambassador Chen is weakening our people from within. Marcus stared at the maps. Glowing red markers moved like blood across the crystal arteries of the city. How many? He asked. Over 900. Exfer replied, armed. Zephyrian guards in their path refuse to fight. They await your judgment. Marcus swallowed hard. They're coming for me. They're coming for the idea of you, Vexthara corrected. Your body is irrelevant, he looked at her. And you? I return from Earth in 5 hours. They move now because they fear what I bring with me. Then we buy you 5 hours, Marcus said. How? Exfer asked. We cannot fight them. Not without confirming every fear they have about human corruption. Marcus took a deep breath. He felt the bruises on his ribs, the ache in his bones, the weight of 2 civilizations balanced on breath. We don't fight, he said. We talk. Exver blinked. You want to speak to a war commander? No, Marcus said. I want to ask him why he's so afraid, and then show him what courage really looks like. And the crystal lights around them, for the first time in hours, pulsed softly in pale green. The plaza of ancestral flame had never held silence before, not like this dot in Zephyrian memory. It was a place of thunder. Duels, declarations, ceremonies of strength. But now it was a basin of tension, filled to the edges with hate sharpened. Into conviction. Marcus Chen stood alone beneath the twin suns. Their light bent through the crystal spires above, casting fractured shadows that danced across the platform. Before him, a tide of armored bodies, warriors with faces like stone, extremists who had carved their truth into ritual scars and marched. Here to protect it. War Commander Drath towered at the front, black skin etched with burning red. His markings pulsed like veins of living magma. The massive figure gripped twin axes that hummed with charged crystal fire. Beside him, hundreds stood ready. Some wore war helms. Others bore tribal relics handed down from before the skyships. All of them believed the same thing: the human must fall. The palace. Guards stood behind Marcus in ceremonial formation, no weapons drawn. Not one raised a hand. General Kexer stood at their center, red armor gleaming but untouched by violence. The general's face was unreadable, his trust placed in something alien. A whisper ran through the gathered extremists as Marcus stepped forward alone. I'm right here, he called, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. No armor. No guards, just a question. Drath's eyes narrowed, golden rings shrinking in disbelief. You dare speak here? To us? I came to understand, Marcus said. I'm still trying. Drath's axes buzzed louder. You poisoned our queen, turned her from the path of fire. She speaks now of human patience, of human peace. You've infected her. No, Marcus said, loud enough for every ear in the plaza to hear. She learned. And she taught me too. The crowd murmured, some confused, others laughing darkly. She taught me how you fight not for dominance, but for clarity, he continued. How combat is conversation, how pain is trust. So now let me ask you, Drath, what exactly are you? Afraid of? The war commander flinched. You stand with hundreds, Marcus said. I stand alone. Yet your markings blaze with rage. Why? Because your peace is weakness, Drath roared. It softens our warriors. Makes them doubt. Marcus stepped closer. No, it makes them choose. Zephyrians don't choose, Drath growled. We conquer. A new voice echoed above the plaza. Do you? All heads turned. A ripple of motion. A shuttle descended. From the sky like a falling star, its engines whispering against the crystal towers. The queen had returned. Vexthara emerged in robes that shimmered with foreign threads earth weaving. Her eyes caught sunlight and held it. Her every step sang against the stone. The extremists parted like water as she walked through them, unhurried. Unshaken. She reached the center, standing beside Marcus, her presence filling the air like stormlight. "Drath," she said calmly, "you claim I am corrupted. Prove it. Send your strongest." A hush. Then laughter. "I will fight," Drath spat, stepping forward, weapons raised. "I will break this madness from you." "Then let tradition decide," the queen said, drawing. No weapon. A ring formed, wide, sacred, ancient. The watchers encircled them, not to cheer, but to witness. Drath lunged first. Zephi in combat was swift and brutal. 4 arms moved like hurricane winds. Each strike came with a roar of intent. But Vexthara did not meet force with force. She flowed. Marcus had seen it before, on Earth, in a dojo, in film, in memory. She was using human martial arts. She twisted beneath Drath's arc, redirected his momentum. Her lower left arm swept his knee. Her right hand guided his strike into the ground. Her every movement used his power against him. Drath growled. "You mimic the weak." Vexthara's eyes burned. "No, I learned from them." He struck again, harder. Sparks lit the air. She evaded, redirected, and then struck just once, open palm to chest. Drath staggered. The crowd leaned in. Marcus watched, breath held, heart thundering. This was no longer a duel. This was a demonstration. Vexthara circled. Her silver patterns pulsed not with rage, but with clarity. "Humans taught me to listen. Before acting," she said, "to think before bleeding." Drath screamed and charged, but she met him with a motion he hadn't expected. A shift, a redirect. His weapon spun from his hands. He fell hard to the ground. She stood over him, chest heaving but calm. "She didn't strike again." "You could have killed me," Drath panted. "Yes," she replied. "But any warrior can destroy. It takes wisdom to build." She extended a hand, and slowly stunned, he took it. The crowd gasped. The plaza, once loud with fury, fell into reverent stillness. Marcus stepped forward. Zephyrians fear losing identity. Humans fear never being accepted. But maybe our greatest strength is the one we share. He looked at Drath, at Vexthara, at the sea of warriors frozen in disbelief. "We adapt." Vexthara turned to her people. "I return from Earth changed, not weaker, wiser. The humans do not erase who we are. They reflect what we can become." General Kexer stepped into the circle. "The trial continues," he declared, "with my full support." And for the first time since the bond was proposed, both sides, human and Zephyrian, stood in a circle where no weapon was raised. A seed had been planted, and all who stood in the plaza felt the truth of it. Something ancient had ended, and something greater had just begun. Crystal banners waved high above the royal city of Vanar, catching wind and refracting twin sunlight into spiraling halos of color. The sky itself seemed to shimmer with renewed breath. But underneath that radiance, something primal still stirred. Bond had survived its greatest test, but survival was not the same as acceptance. 5 days had passed since Queen Vexthara's duel with War Commander Drath. 5 days since she had fused human movement with Zephyrian tradition and won without destroying. Her people had watched in awe, but some had not been swayed. Not entirely. And Marcus Chun knew it. Beneath the praise, the nods of respect, and the new silence in the halls of the palace, there was still tension. Not loud, not open, but deep, like a fault line waiting for the wrong footstep. And that wrong footstep, Marcus feared, might be his. He trained every day, sparred with Hexine, studied Zephyrian law, and meditated with the crystal monks beneath the palace's roots. He had stopped asking questions aloud. Now he listened with his whole body. Because Zephyrians didn't always speak with words. They sang with action, with pain, with presence, but the final test hadn't come. Not until now. Captain Exfer met him at dawn. The air was sharp and clean, filled with the faint song of morning crystals. Ambassador, Exfer said, armor gleaming with diplomatic colors. The Queen requests your presence in the lower sanctum, immediately. What's there? Marcus asked, strapping his tunic tight. The place where all bonding rites end, Exfer replied. He said nothing more. The walk was long and silent. They passed through unfamiliar corridors, cut not from polished blue crystal, but raw, jagged, green. This part of the palace had no guards. Only flickering glyphs that changed language with every step. At last, they arrived at a circular chamber. In the center, a ring of crystal fire floated above a stone dais. Within that flame, 2 chairs, simple, symmetrical, humming with ancient resonance, and already seated in one of them Queen vexthara. Marcus approached slowly. The air was heavy here. Not from heat or pressure, but from memory. You've come. Vexthara said. I don't think I had a choice, Marcus said, smiling. Double quotes, no, she replied. You had thousands. And you chose this. He sat across from her. The flame between them flared higher. You understand what this chamber is? She asked. The final circle, he answered. The place where full bonds are sealed. Where minds are joined, not minds, she corrected. Histories, intentions, futures, Marcus nodded. And if I fail this? The bond ends. The war begins. The fire snapped like thunder. Then we begin, she said. And the crystal. Flames surged, engulfing them. Suddenly, Marcus wasn't in the room. He was standing in a vast desert of memory. Above him, stars wheeled in unfamiliar constellations. Below, a battlefield. Broken Zephyrian bodies, fire, ash. A younger Vexthara knelt beside her dying sister, blood soaking the sand. He felt the grief. Tasted the silence. Then the memory shattered. He was underwater, drowning, sinking through the depths of her sorrow when her mother's heart stopped during the Drury War. Then again, he was a child. His own memory now, standing at his father's funeral, holding his brother's hand, not crying, not moving. You bury pain, her voice echoed in the water. You make it your armor. He replied. Memories collided. Marcus saw her learning English. In secret, late at night, long before diplomacy was even considered. He saw her reading human philosophy, Socrates, Freud, King, Baldwin. Not for knowledge, but for understanding. What made these soft creatures so endlessly resilient? Then he saw himself crying in a shower stall after his first failed peace negotiation. Fists clenched, ashamed, afraid. And then still choosing to try again the next day. A bright white flash tore the vision apart. They were back in the chamber. The flame calmed. The room was quiet. They sat across from each other, eyes locked. Neither of them spoke for a full minute, until Vexthara finally broke the silence. I have seen what shapes you, she said. You do not seek peace because you are afraid. You seek it because you remember what it costs. I saw your losses too, Marcus whispered, and your restraint. You could have chosen war a dozen times over, but you waited. You hoped. Zephyrians do not hope, she said, but you did, he replied. You hoped in me. She stood. So did he. The flame vanished. Then let it be recorded, she said, voice clear and ringing across the chamber. Ambassador Marcus Chunov. Earth has endured the rite of shared memory. He has not flinched. He has not withdrawn. He understands. She extended her upper arms. Will you accept the bond, not as a political solution, but as shared guardianship between species? Marcus nodded once. Yes, fully, completely. The flame returned, this time small and gentle. Circling their clasped hands, it etched a new color into the walls, something no Zephyrian had ever seen, human red, symbol of courage, from above. The palace began to sing. Crystal tones layered upon each other like threads of sky and thunder. In the courtyard below, Zephyrians paused, looked up, and felt something shift, not in their minds, in their legacy. 6 months later, the stars were no longer silent. Above the neutral moon of Celis III, ships from 29 worlds hovered in peaceful orbit, their signal relays humming in unified cadence. Languages merged in threads of light, a braid of communication. And intent? All drawn toward the great structure that sat nestled in the hollowed crescent of the silver-gray landscape. Below, the Intergalactic Academy of Understanding. The first of its kind, its foundation was made of earth-forged alloys, reinforced with Zephyrian crystal technology. Its architecture blended human logic with Zephyrian flow steel meeting light, angles dancing with harmony. Each wall pulsed with subtle breath, alive with the soft hum of shared memory. And inside, walking along a balcony that overlooked a training courtyard, stood Marcus Chen. He wore simple black robes now, woven with thin threads of Zephyrian memory silk. Not a diplomat suit, not a soldier's armor. Something new, something earned. Below him, a group of human and Zephyrian students moved in circles, practicing hybrid combat stances. One human girl, tall and determined, stood toe-to-toe with a Zephyrian boy nearly twice her size. Their movements echoed both styles. The precision of martial flow, the brute form of crystal fire. They weren't just learning to fight. They were learning to listen. Behind him, the faint sound of footsteps, not hurried, not heavy. He didn't turn. He didn't need to. You walk more like a Zephyrian now, Queen Vexthara said, stepping beside him, her violet and silver robes rustling in the filtered moonlight. And you, Marcus replied, have mastered the human art of sneaking up during quiet moments. She smiled just a little. We have both grown. Dangerously unpredictable. They stood in silence, watching as the Zephyrian student offered his hand to the human girl after a flawless disarm. She accepted, smiling. The others clapped, not loudly, but with purpose. Did you ever think we'd make it this far? Marcus asked. No, Vexthara said honestly, but I hoped. Marcus chuckled. You told me Zephyrians don't hope. I was wrong. He looked at her, really looked. She no longer wore her crown except during ceremonial summons. Her armor now bore human markings alongside Zephyrian glyphs, and her silver patterns had changed subtly. They now curled at the edges, an ancient sign of adaptation in Zephyrian lore. I've been receiving messages, Vexthara continued. The Kalori wish to send students. The Morvic Council is drafting bond proposals. And the Zenth? They asked if you'd be willing to teach negotiation on their station. Marcus smiled. Me? I'm just the guy who froze when a queen told him to marry her. You did more than freeze, she said, her voice low. You waited. You considered. That moment changed everything. Marcus turned toward her, seriousness returning to his gaze. Do you regret that proposal? Vexthara's golden eyes met his. No. It forced a path none of our ancestors could see. And while we never married, what we built is stronger than any ritual. Their joined hands held during the final bonding rite had not created a romantic tie. It had sparked something greater. A living bridge between species. A partnership not forged by conquest or treaty, but by curiosity. By the refusal to act in fear. Marcus leaned forward on the railing, watching another group enter the courtyard, this time children, Zephyrian and human. Some speaking both languages fluently, others inventing new gestures to communicate. In the distance, an instructor hummed a tuning chord through crystal threads that made the tower pulse in reply. "There are going to be challenges," he said quietly. "Some of our people still distrust each other. Others fear. We've given too much away." "And still," Vexthara replied, "they send their young here. Not because they trust us, but because they want to." "That's where it begins," Marcus said. A sudden ripple of sound broke the calm, a notification from the upper comms tower. Vexthara lifted her wrist crystal. The message flared in Zephyrian glyphs, then translated into Terran English. Message was short. Diplomatic convoy arriving from the Drari system. Request observation of Hybrid Academy. Message ends. Marcus froze. The DRAARI. The very species that killed Vexthara's family. The war that shaped her silence. The war that almost made her destroy Earth. "You don't have to," Marcus said. Softly. "We can delay." "No," she replied. "This is the moment I waited for." He watched as her markings shifted calm blue, soft silver. She breathed once, grounding herself not in past pain, but in present choice. "I will meet them," she said, "and I will listen." Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder not as a symbol, but as a promise. "Together?" Vexthara nodded. "Together." They turned toward the stairway leading to the landing pad. Above them, stars shifted. New alignments forming in the dark. Once, the galaxy feared peace would make them weak. Now, peace had become the boldest form of strength. They walked together, man and monarch, warrior and diplomat, human and Zephyrian, not as an answer to the past. But as the question the future would ask. Again and again, what if we dared to understand instead of conquer? And this time, the galaxy might finally know how to answer.